Today, we're going to venture into the most dangerous paths in nature with 7 horror stories involving trails that went terribly wrong. Get ready to hear chilling stories about hikes that started out as fun and ended in real nightmares. Sinister. Encounters in the middle of the forest and situations where nature showed its darkest side. Oh, and before the trail takes you into the unknown, take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and leave a like. This helps the channel a lot and ensures that you don't miss any scary content like this. Let's go. The Volksguide. The group of 5 American tourists were excited to explore the remote trails of the Swiss Alps when they met Hans Keller in the small village of Grindelwald. The 45-year-old with a grey beard and worn hiking gear seemed like the perfect guide, experienced, knowledgeable about secret trails, and recommended by the local agency. "I'll show you places that few tourists see," Hans promised, surveying. The group, Sarah and Mark, a couple of teachers from Chicago, Jennifer, a freelance photographer from Seattle, and brothers David and Michael, engineers from Boston. Trails where you'll have the mountain to yourselves. On the first day, the hike was spectacular. Hans led them through narrow paths, with stunning views, always explaining about the local flora and history of the region. The group felt privileged to have found such an authentic guide. It was on the second day that Sarah noticed the first inconsistency. "That route isn't on the map," she muttered to Mark, consulting her GPS. "We're going in the opposite direction of what we planned." When Hans was questioned, he smiled calmly. "Tourist maps are limited. Trust me, I've known these mountains for 30 years. By the third day, cell phone signals had disappeared completely. Hans explained that this was normal at high altitudes, but Jennifer noticed that they were descending, not ascending. More disturbing, Hans had confiscated their GPS devices to avoid technological dependence. "Something's wrong," David whispered to Michael during a stop. "We've been hiking for 3 days, and we haven't seen any other hikers." That night, while Hans slept, Sarah quietly explored the camp's surroundings. She found a trail that led to an abandoned cabin 500 meters away. Silently waking Mark, the two of them investigated. The cabin was filled with disturbing evidence, passports of different nationalities, photos of missing tourists, abandoned camping equipment, and a notebook with notes in German about deliveries and market values. "My God," Mark whispered, flipping through the notebook. "There are names, dates, prices. He's selling people." Sarah took pictures of the whole thing with her hidden camera. The notes revealed a 3-year operation in which Hans lured small groups of tourists to remote areas and then handed them over to a human trafficking ring that operated between Switzerland, Austria, and Italy. Returning silently to camp, they found Hans awake, watching them with cold eyes. "Too curious," he said calmly, revealing a gun. "That always complicates things." "What do you want?" Sarah asked, trying to remain calm. "Initially, I just took them to my associates," Hans replied. "American tourists are a good value on the market. But now that they've seen the cabin," Hans explained that he had been operating for years, always targeting small groups with no local connections. He used his reputation as a guide to lure victims, then led them to drop-off points in untraceable areas. "You will disappear like so many others," he said. "Families will think it was a mountain accident," while Hans forced them to hike through. The night, Jennifer managed to discreetly activate an emergency beacon she kept hidden in her boot, a device she had purchased after reading about disappearances on trails. The signal was picked up by a Swiss rescue team 6 hours later. Hans tried to force the group to move faster when he heard helicopters, but the mountainous terrain made escape difficult. "Stop where you are!" the rescuers shouted in German and English. Hans tried to use the group as human shields, but David and Michael managed to disarm him during the melee. He was captured by the Alpine police. The subsequent investigation revealed that Hans Keller was actually Heinrich Müller, a former licensed guide who had lost his certification following allegations of inappropriate conduct. Over the past 5 years, he had operated illegally, handing over at least 23 tourists to trafficking rings. He specifically targeted Americans and Australians, the lead investigator explained. People who had traveled far from home, whose disappearances would take time to properly investigate. The hut contained evidence linking Hans to an international network operating in multiple alpine countries. 7 other guides were arrested in a coordinated operation. For the 5 American survivors, the experience fundamentally changed their perspective on adventure travel. Today, they participate in educational campaigns about trail safety. The fake guide case led to changes in Swiss regulations for guide certification and mandatory tracking systems for groups on remote trails and for adventurers planning trails. In isolated regions, here's a warning. Always check official credentials of guides, provide detailed itineraries to local authorities, and remember that not every mountain expert has the intention of taking you safely back to civilization. The Trail of No Return, Jake Morrison and Tyler Chen, had been planning the Johnston Canyon hike for months. The 2 Vancouver friends, both 28, were experienced hikers who knew their way around Canada's national parks. The 3-mile trail was considered moderate and popular with tourists. Perfect for a relaxing weekend, Jake commented, adjusting his backpack as they left the park's official parking lot at 8 a.m. The first 2 kilometers passed normally along the paved trail. It was when they reached a fork that was not on their maps that things began to get complicated. A professional sign, identical to the park's official ones, read, "Alternative Panoramic Route. Exclusive view of the Upper Falls, 3 kilometers." Below, in smaller letters, "Less crowded trail, more authentic experience." "I don't remember that option on the park website," Tyler said, consulting his map. "It must be new," Jake replied. "Let's try it. I really hate crowds." The alternative trails started out well-marked, but gradually became narrower and less maintained. After an hour of hiking, they had not encountered any other hikers, which was unusual for such a popular area. "Something's wrong," Tyler muttered, checking his GPS. "We're moving away from the falls, not closer." When they tried to turn back, they discovered that several directional signs had appeared as they passed, all pointing straight ahead. "Continue. Panoramic view, 1 kilometers," read one sign that Tyler swore he had not seen before. Someone's putting up these signs, Jake realized. "We're being targeted." Deciding to ignore the signs, they tried to go back the way they remembered coming. But they found more signs. "Trail closed," "landslide," "danger, do not proceed," all of which looked convincingly official. "We're being manipulated," Tyler said, panic rising in his voice. That's when they heard the first shot. A bullet hit a tree yards away, followed by a voice shouting, "Stay on the trail, don't try to leave." The 2 ran desperately along the trail, following the signs for lack of other options. Behind them, they heard heavy footsteps and occasional warning shots. "Welcome to my private park," the voice shouted. "You chose the wrong trail." After 2 hours of exhausting pursuit, Jake and Tyler arrived at a clearing where they found disturbing evidence. Remains of abandoned campsites, scattered hiking equipment, and what appeared to be shallow graves marked with stones. "How many people did he bring here?" Jake whispered. A rustic cabin dominated the clearing. From the doorway emerged a man of about 50, dressed in camouflage clothing and carrying a rifle. "I am Warren Blackwood," he introduced himself calmly. "Guardian of this area for 5 years. You are my guests now." Warren explained his methodology with disturbing coldness. He had constructed an elaborate system of fake signs to divert specific hikers to his private reserve. He chose victims who hiked in small groups, preferably without guides or strong local connections. "Experienced hikers are more fun," he said. They can survive longer in the woods. It makes hunting more interesting. The cabin was equipped with detailed maps of the area showing all the official trails and the spots where Warren had set up his fake signs. There were also macabre trophies, wallets, watches, and equipment from his previous victims. 17 people in the last 2 years, Warren said proudly. Authorities think they're trail accidents or lost people. As Warren prepared his gear for his hunt, Jake realized that the man had underestimated his survival skills. Years of hiking had taught him orientation techniques that didn't rely on signs. "Tyler," Jake whispered, "remember survival class. Moss grows on the north side of trees." When Warren left to prepare the hunting grounds, the two escaped through the back window of the cabin. Completely ignoring the directional signs, they used natural navigation to find their true way back. The escape through the forest lasted 6 hours. Warren pursued them methodically, knowing every false trail he had created, but he did not expect his victims to navigate by natural orientation. When they finally reached the official trail, they found a search team that had been called when they did not return at the scheduled time. "There's a man with a gun in the woods," Jake shouted to the rangers. "He's set up a system of fake signs to lure hikers." The ensuing search operation found Warren attempting to remove evidence from his cabin. He was captured after armed resistance. The investigation revealed that Warren Blackwood had been fired from the Park Service 5 years earlier for inappropriate behavior. Since then, he had been living illegally in the forest, creating his own park where he hunted humans. He installed over 200 fake signs over 3 years, the lead investigator explained, a sophisticated system to divert specific hikers to his area of operation. 15 bodies were found buried on Warren's property. Analysis of the fake plates showed that he had manufactured them professionally, making them indistinguishable from official ones. For Jake Morrison and Tyler Chen, the experience fundamentally changed their approach to hiking. Today, they lead workshops on nature navigation and park safety. The Forest Watcher Inn. October 2019, the Morrison family decided to spend a weekend on the trails of Banff National Park in Canada. David, his wife Sarah, and their 2 children, Emma, 16, and Jake, 14, were looking for a moment to disconnect from the hustle and bustle of Calgary life. What began as a relaxing family getaway would soon turn into one of the most disturbing cases ever documented by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. On their first day on the Bow Valley Trail, Sarah noticed a lone figure about 300 yards behind them. The man, wearing a green military jacket and a dark cap, seemed to be following exactly the same pace as the family. When they stopped to take pictures of the snow-capped mountains, he would stop too. When they picked up their pace, he would keep the same steady distance. "It's probably just another hiker," David reassured, but a shiver ran down his spine when he realized the stranger wasn't carrying a backpack, water bottle, or any hiking gear. On the second morning, the situation escalated dramatically. The man had moved to within 150 yards and was now visible through binoculars. Emma nervously whispered to her father, "He's taking pictures of us." David decided to confront the stalker. Walking determinedly toward the man, he expected him to run away. Instead, the stranger smiled calmly and said, "Hello, David Morrison. How is work going at the engineering firm Petrotech? Still working on the refinery project?" David's blood ran cold. How did this man know specific details about his job? Does your wife Sarah still take those 6:30 a.m. morning walks around Nose Hill Park? The man continued in an eerily calm voice. And does little Emma still have piano lessons on Wednesdays with Mrs. Henderson on 17th Avenue? Sarah, who had come closer, paled as she heard intimate details of his routine. The man went on, revealing impossible information. The name of the family cat's veterinarian, the exact time Jake got home from school, even the fact that David forgot to lock the garage on Tuesday nights. "You're a fascinating family," he said, pulling a yellowed envelope from his pocket. "Especially since I found out where you live. 2847 Kensington Road, NW, isn't that right? The blue house with Sarah's rose garden. Inside the envelope were dozens of photographs. The family leaving the house, the children at school, Sarah at the supermarket, David at work. Some of the photos were clearly taken from inside the house, through the windows. I've been planning this meeting for 6 months," the stalker revealed. "I've studied your every move, your routine, your every habit. I chose this place because no one can hear you scream here." Terror gripped the family as they realized they were completely isolated, miles from any help. David grabbed Sarah's hand and yelled at the children to run. Knowing these trails well from years past, they managed to escape by taking a steep shortcut that led directly to the parking lot. When mounted police arrived at the scene an hour later, they found no trace of the man. The only evidence was footprints in the mud and a note left on a tree. "See you soon, Morrison family. The case remains open to this day." The family has since moved to Vancouver, but Sarah still reports a constant feeling of being watched. Hey, guys, the stories of trails gone wrong are still pretty chilling, aren't they? If you're enjoying these scary stories, take a quick break, subscribe to the channel, and leave a like. This really helps the channel grow and motivates me to keep bringing you more chilling content. Now let's get back to the next stories. There's still a lot of scary stuff ahead. The abandoned camp the Weber family had planned the weekend in the Harz National Forest as a much-needed break from their busy lives in Hamburg. Klaus, a 42-year-old engineer, his wife Ingrid, a 38-year-old teacher, and their 14-year-old twin children, Anna and Max, were occasional hikers looking to reconnect with nature. "Perfect trail for beginners," Klaus said, consulting the map, as they left the visitor center. 5 kilometers, easy terrain, back before dark. The first 2 kilometers passed peacefully through the dense pine forest. It was Anna who first noticed the distant figure among the trees. "Daddy, there's someone following us," she whispered, discreetly pointing to a silhouette that was moving, parallel to the trail, keeping a distance of approximately 100 meters. Klaus looked in the indicated direction. A middle-aged man in dark clothes walked through the trees with deliberate movements, clearly keeping pace with the family. "It must be another hiker," Klaus said, trying to reassure his children. "Popular trails always have other people." But after another hour of walking, the man was still there, always at the same distance, never getting closer or further away. When the family stopped, he stopped. When they sped up, he sped up. "This isn't normal," Ingrid muttered to Klaus. "He's definitely following us." Klaus decided to test his theory. He left the main trail, leading the family along a side path. The man immediately adjusted his route, keeping watch. "Let's confront him," Klaus decided. "Children, stay close to Mommy." When Klaus began walking toward the observer, the man did not run away. Instead, he approached calmly, as if expecting confrontation. "Klaus Weber," the man said quietly, stopping a few feet away. "A Siemens engineer, married to Ingrid Weber, teacher at Heinrich Heine Elementary School. Twin children Anna and Max, born March 15th, 2010. Klaus's blood ran cold. "How do you know our names?" The man smiled coldly. "I know a lot more than just names. I know you live at 47 Bram Street. I know Klaus works late on Tuesdays. I know Ingrid takes yoga classes on Thursdays. I know Anna wants to be a veterinarian and Max plays soccer for the youth team." "Who are you?" Ingrid asked, pulling her children closer. "My name is Heinrich Müller. I've been observing your family for 6 months. Heinrich calmly explained that he had chosen the Webers after months of surveillance. He had studied their routines, followed them in their daily activities, secretly photographed them. "Why?" Klaus asked, trying to remain calm. "Because you represent everything I've lost," Heinrich replied. "Perfect family, stable life, healthy children. My family died in an accident 2 years ago. Since then, I've been watching families like yours." Heinrich revealed that he knew intimate details about their lives. The arguments Klaus and Ingrid had had about money, Anna's problems at school, Max's fear of the dark. "How do you know these things?" Ingrid whispered. "Microphones are small, these." "For days," Heinrich replied, "and you leave the windows open often." The realization that they had been spied on in their own home hit the family like a physical blow. "What do you want from us?" Klaus asked. "Initially, just observing, living through you," Heinrich said. "But observation is not enough anymore. I want to participate." Heinrich explained that he had planned this meeting in the forest because he wanted to be alone with his family, away from witnesses and interference. "Nobody knows where you are," he said. "You left your car in the public parking lot, but you didn't tell anyone about the specific trail." Klaus realized that Heinrich was right. They had decided on the trail impulsively, without informing friends or relatives. "Let's go now," Klaus said firmly, taking Ingrid's hand. "They won't," Heinrich replied, revealing a knife. "We haven't finished our family conversation yet." Heinrich forced the family to sit in a clearing, where he revealed the full extent of his obsession. He had documented every aspect of their lives, creating a detailed archive as if he were a member of the family. "I know Anna had nightmares last week," he said. "I know Max broke his grandmother's vase and lied about it. I know Klaus is considering a promotion, but he's afraid of more responsibility." Each revelation was an intimate violation of her privacy. As Heinrich talked obsessively about his family, Max noticed that the man had left a backpack open, revealing more surveillance equipment and photographs. "Daddy," Max whispered, signing discreetly. Klaus understood. When Heinrich was distracted by organizing his photographs, Klaus attacked, knocking him down. In the confusion, Ingrid grabbed the knife while the children ran for help. Heinrich tried to escape, but Klaus managed to contain him until the arrival of the forest police, called by Max, who had found other hikers. The investigation revealed that Heinrich Müller had lost his family in a car accident 2 years earlier and had developed an obsession with surrogate families. His home was filled with surveillance equipment and files on 5 different families. He had been operating for 2 years, the detective explained. He would single out specific families, study them obsessively, then set up opportunities for meetings in isolated locations. 2 other families were identified as previous victims of Heinrich. One had disappeared while camping the previous year. Another was found dead under suspicious circumstances. For the Weber family, the experience fundamentally changed their sense of security. Today, they live with reinforced security systems and participate in support groups for victims of stalking. The Broken Bridge, the group of 4 friends from the University of Calgary, were excited to complete the Skyline Trail, one of the most challenging trails in Jasper National Park. Sarah Mitchell, a 22-year-old biology student, led the group, which included her boyfriend Alex Chen and friends Jessica Walsh and Ryan Murphy, all experienced hikers. "According to the map, the bridge over the Malene River should be just ahead," Sarah said, consulting her GPS after 3 hours of hiking along the well-marked trail. When they reached the river, they found a wooden bridge that appeared to be damaged, with several broken planks and an official sign, "Unsafe bridge, mandatory detour, follow yellow markings." Yellow arrows painted on trees indicated a secondary trail that skirted the river. "Strange," said Alex, a 23-year-old civil engineer, examining the structure. "These breaks look very uniform, like they were intentional." Jessica, ever the pragmatist, pointed to the markings. "The sign looks official, and there are other footprints following the detour. It should be safe." The detour started out well marked, but gradually became narrower and less maintained. After 2 hours of extra hiking, they still hadn't found the rejoining point to the main trail. "This doesn't make sense," muttered Ryan, a 24-year-old IT consultant checking his GPS. "We're getting further and further away from the original trail." That's when they noticed they hadn't encountered any other hikers since the detour, despite the Skyline Trail being popular during the summer. More disturbingly, the yellow markings appeared to be freshly painted, not weathered. As one would expect, someone is purposefully targeting us, Sarah realized. Stopping abruptly, they tried to turn back, but found that more markings had appeared, all pointing straight ahead. "Dangerous U-turn. Continue," read a sign that Alex swore he had not seen before. "We're being manipulated," Jessica whispered, panic rising in her voice. That's when they heard the first shot. A bullet hit a nearby tree, followed by a voice shouting, "Welcome to my territory. Keep following the markings." The group ran desperately along the trail, following the yellow arrows for lack of other options. Behind them, they heard heavy footsteps and occasional warning shots. "You chose the wrong turn," the voice shouted. "You are my guests now." After an hour of exhausting pursuit, they arrived at a clearing where they found disturbing evidence: a rustic cabin surrounded by abandoned camping equipment and what appeared to be makeshift grave markers. From the hut emerged a man of about 55, dressed in military fatigues and carrying a rifle. "I am Colonel Thomas Hartwell, retired," he introduced himself. "I have been in command of this area for the past 4 years. Hartwell explained his methodology with military precision. He had deliberately sabotaged the main bridge to force hikers to use his bypass, directing them to his secluded property where he operated as a predator. "Experienced hikers are ideal targets," he said. "They know how to survive, making the hunt more challenging, and no one questions official detours in national parks." The cabin was equipped with detailed maps showing all the trails in the area and the spots where Hartwell had created his modifications. Fake signs, directional markers, even booby traps to force hikers onto specific routes. 23 people. "In the last 4 years, Hartwell said proudly. "Authorities think they're either trail accidents or wild animal attacks." As Hartwell prepared equipment for his hunting operation, Sarah noticed that he had underestimated her navigational skills. Years of hiking had taught them orientation techniques that did not rely on artificial markers. "Guys," Sarah whispered, "remember survival training. Sun is in the west, river runs north." When Hartwell left to prepare the field of operations, the group escaped through the back window. Completely ignoring the yellow markers, they used natural navigation and followed the sound of the river to find their way back. The escape through the forest lasted 5 hours. Hartwell pursued them methodically, knowing every false trail he had created, but he did not expect his victims to navigate by natural orientation. When they finally reached the main trail, they found a search party that had been called when they failed to return at the scheduled time. "There's a man with a gun controlling the diversions," Sarah yelled to the rangers. "He sabotaged the bridge to direct hikers." The ensuing operation found Hartwell attempting to remove evidence from his cabin. He was captured after armed resistance. The investigation revealed that Thomas Hartwell had been discharged from the military for inappropriate behavior 5 years earlier. Since then, he had been living illegally in the park, creating his own training camp where he preyed on civilians. He had modified more than 15 trails over 4 years, the lead investigator explained. Sophisticated military system to funnel hikers into his area of operation. 20 bodies were found buried on Hartwell's property. Analysis of the modifications to the trails showed meticulous planning to create human funnels, directing victims into controlled areas. For the Calgary group, the experience fundamentally changed their reliance on official signage. Today, they lead workshops on natural navigation and trail trap detection. The false rescue Lisa Chen was on day 4 of a 5-day solo hike across the Olympic Peninsula when the accident happened. The 28-year-old freelance photographer from Seattle slipped on a wet rock while crossing a creek, severely spraining her right ankle. The pain was excruciating, and she was 9 miles from the main trail. Sitting on a rock, trying to assess her options, Lisa heard footsteps approaching. A man of about 45 years old, wearing a green Forest Service uniform, emerged from the brush. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" he asked, approaching with a concerned expression. "I'm Ranger Mitchell, patrolling this area." Lisa felt immense relief. "I sprained my ankle. I can't walk." "I'll help you," Mitchell said, examining the wound. "I have a first aid station 2 kilometers away. I can treat you properly." Mitchell helped Lisa to her feet, offering support as they limped slowly through the forest. He seemed to know the area well, pointing out medicinal plants and explaining about the local wildlife. "How long have you worked here?" Lisa asked, trying to distract herself from the pain. 15 years, Mitchell replied. "I know every trail in this forest." After an hour of difficult walking, they came to a rustic but well-kept cabin tucked away in a dense clearing. "Emergency station," Mitchell explained, "for situations like this." The cabin was equipped with medical supplies, but Lisa noticed something strange. There was no visible communications equipment, nor any official Forest Service signs. "Where's the radio?" she asked. "System is down for maintenance," Mitchell replied, helping her sit on a bed. "But don't worry, I'll take good care of you." As Mitchell prepared medical supplies, Lisa took a closer look at the cabin. There were women's clothes hanging in one corner, different sizes and styles, as if they belonged to several different people. "Whose clothes are these?" he asked. Mitchell hesitated. "Other hikers I've helped. Sometimes they need to change out of wet clothes." The explanation didn't convince Lisa. The clothes looked like they had been collected over time, not left temporarily. When Mitchell left to get more supplies, Lisa quickly explored the cabin. In the closet, she found disturbing personal items, ID cards belonging to different women, assorted camping equipment, and photographs of hikers apparently taken without their knowledge. "My God," she whispered, recognizing some of the photos as being of herself, taken during the previous days of her trail. Lisa realized with horror that Mitchell had been watching her for days, waiting for an opportunity. The accident had been the perfect chance. When Mitchell returned, Lisa tried to act normal. "Thank you for helping me. When can we contact rescue services?" "There's no rush," Mitchell replied, locking the door. "You need to rest first." "Why did you lock the door?" Lisa asked, panic rising. Mitchell smiled coldly. "For your safety, of course. The forest can be dangerous." Mitchell explained that he was not actually a ranger, but a predator who had been operating for 5 years, staging rescues to kidnap women who were hiking alone. "I choose carefully," he said. "Experienced women who hike solo, away from groups. When they get hurt or lost, I come to their rescue." The hut was their base of operations, equipped to hold victims for extended periods. Mitchell revealed that he had rescued 12 women over the years. "What happened to them?" Lisa asked, trying to buy time. "Some cooperated, some didn't," Mitchell replied vaguely. "You seem intelligent. I hope you make the right choice." As Mitchell prepared sedatives, Lisa noticed he had left a camping knife on the table. Her experience as a solo hiker had included basic self-defense training. As Mitchell approached with the syringe, Lisa pretended to faint from the pain. When he leaned over to check, she grabbed the knife and stabbed him in the hand, causing him to drop the sedative. In the ensuing struggle, Lisa managed to cut the ropes Mitchell was trying to use to tie her up. Despite her injured ankle, she managed to escape the cabin. The escape through the forest was agonizing. Mitchell chased her, knowing every trail, but Lisa used camouflage techniques she had learned in survival courses. After 6 hours of hiding and moving slowly, Lisa found the main trail and other hikers who immediately called for real rescue. The investigation revealed that Mitchell was actually Robert Hayes, a former Forest Service employee who had been fired for inappropriate behavior. He had created a false identity and operated illegally in the forest. He used stolen authentic uniforms and real knowledge of the area to gain trust, the investigator explained. Victims never suspected him because he genuinely appeared to be a ranger. At the cabin, police found evidence of 12 kidnappings. Over 5 years, 8 bodies were discovered buried on the property. 4 women remained missing. Robert had meticulously documented each rescue, treating kidnappings as legitimate rescue operations in his twisted mind. For Lisa Chen, who survived with minor physical injuries but lasting psychological trauma, the experience changed her approach to solo hiking. The false rescue case led to changes in identification protocols for Forest Service employees and verification systems for emergency stations. The Night Trail, the group of 5 friends from the University of Nottingham, had planned the night hike as a Halloween celebration. Tom Bradley, a 23-year-old engineering student, led the group, which included his girlfriend Sophie Mills and friends James Parker, Lucy Chen and Ryan Walsh, all experienced hikers who knew Sherwood Forest well. Perfect for a nighttime adventure, Tom said, checking the high-powered LED flashlights they each carried. 5-mile trail, well marked, back before midnight. The trail began as usual at 8 p.m., with the group following reflective markers through the historic forest. Headlamps clearly illuminated the path, and the nighttime setting created an exciting but controlled atmosphere. It was after 2 hours of walking that the first flashlight failed. James's simply went out without warning. New battery, he muttered, trying to restart it. Should last 8 hours. 10 minutes later, Lucy's flashlight failed too. Then Ryan's. One by one, the flashlights stopped working, leaving only Tom and Sophie with light. "This isn't normal," said Sophie, a 22-year-old nurse, nervously checking her flashlight. "They were all new. We tested them before we left." In the growing darkness, the group crept closer, relying on their 2 remaining flashlights. That was when they noticed fresh footprints on the trail, heavy boots that belonged to none of them. "Someone else is here," Tom whispered, shining his light around. As if in response to the comment, Sophie's flashlight abruptly failed, leaving only Tom's working. In the almost total darkness, they heard the sound of branches breaking in the surrounding forest. "Stay together," Tom ordered, but his voice betrayed growing nervousness. That's when their flashlight also went out, plunging them into complete darkness. In the silence that followed, they heard a calm voice coming from the forest. "Welcome to my night game. The rules are simple. Survive until dawn." The group clung to each other, trying to maintain physical contact in the darkness. But something, or someone, began throwing small objects at them, forcing them to move and eventually separate. "Sophie!" Tom shouted as he lost contact with her in the confusion. "I'm here," she replied, but her voice came from a different direction than expected. In the darkness, they heard heavy footsteps moving methodically among them. Whoever it was knew the forest perfectly, moving silently as they stumbled over roots and branches. "He's purposely separating us," James realized, whispering to where he thought the others were. A sudden light momentarily blinded them, a high-powered military flashlight in the hands of a figure in dark clothing. "I'm Sergeant Williams, retired," he introduced himself. "This is my forest now." Williams explained that he had sabotaged his flashlights using an electromagnetic interference device. As a former military man specializing in night warfare, he had turned the forest into his personal training ground. "Young people today are too dependent on technology," he said. "I'm going to teach real survival." Williams revealed that he had been observing groups of night hikers for months, choosing targets he considered suitable for training. He used military equipment to sabotage electronics and create controlled panic situations. 6 groups in the last 2 years, he said proudly. Some learned valuable lessons, others didn't survive the training. Williams forced the group to participate in his survival exercise, using military tactics to keep them separated and disoriented. In total darkness, each member of the group faced individual challenges as Williams systematically hunted them down. Tom, using his scouting knowledge, managed to find Sophie in the darkness. Together, they located James, who had hidden in a hollow tree, but Lucy and Ryan remained lost in the forest. "We need to find the others," Sophie whispered. Using discrete sound signals they had learned in group activities, they were able to locate Lucy, hidden behind a rock formation. But Ryan did not respond to their calls. Williams appeared again, this time without a flashlight, moving silently in the darkness like a seasoned predator. 4 out of 5. Not bad for a beginner. "Where's Ryan?" Tom demanded. "You failed the test," Williams replied coldly, "but you still have a chance to pass." The group realized that Ryan had been captured or worse. Determined not to abandon their friend, they began a systematic search for him, using search techniques Tom knew from scouting. They found Ryan tied to a tree, conscious but gagged. As they freed him, Williams attacked, but the group had learned to work together in the dark. Sophie, using medical training, managed to temporarily disorientate Williams with a nerve pressure technique. In the confusion, Tom retrieved Williams's military flashlight. With lighting restored, they were able to contain Williams until the police arrived, triggered by an emergency GPS device that Lucy had secretly activated. The investigation revealed that Sergeant Williams had been discharged from the army for extreme training methods. For the past 3 years, he had been operating illegally in the forest, using hikers as unwitting recruits. He had modified electronic equipment from at least 15 groups, the investigator explained. He used military devices to create systematic failures in flashlights and GPS. 4 hikers were found dead in different areas of the forest, all victims of Williams' training exercises. 7 other groups had survived, but with severe psychological trauma. For the Nottingham group, the experience fundamentally changed their approach to night hiking. They now lead workshops on safety and backup equipment, and so we come to the end of our 7 horror stories involving trails gone wrong. So, which one scared you the most? Will any of them make you double-check the map before your next adventure in nature? Tell us in the comments which one was your favorite. If you enjoyed this dive into the scary world of dangerous trails, don't forget to leave a like. This really helps the channel grow and encourages me to bring you more spine-chilling stories. And if you're not a subscriber yet, take advantage now to subscribe and activate the bell.